You know, you and I have talked many, many hours in front of cameras, in front of wonderful audiences, and in private. I've never really asked you this. What is it like to be one of the few lovers of freedom in the Congress who believes that the Constitution means what it says?
Lonely.
Why is it that Congressman Clyburn said to me, most of what we do down here is not authorized by the Constitution? Why is it that Mrs. Pelosi, when asked where in the Constitution health care is authorized, she actually questioned the questioner and said, "Are you serious?" Why is it that members of Congress from both parties are afraid to follow the document which they took an oath to uphold?
They think they're going to get a lot of opposition at home and they're going to lose the next election. What we need to change is that they have to think they're going to lose their next election if they don't follow the Constitution.
In your lifetime, have you seen a movement like we see today? And Congressman Paul and I have been all over the country together. Have you seen a movement like we see today, which is filled with youth that understands and demands its natural freedoms?
Yeah, I've never seen it. It excites me, and I'll tell you what, something big's going on. I'll tell you.
What can young people do to make it known to the stodgy Republicans and Democrats that they are stuck with as their representatives in the Congress, that they're not going to put up with this anymore?
What they need to do is study hard, study the law, study natural law, study the Constitution, and become as smart as you are.
What's going to happen with health care? Is Nancy Pelosi going to get the votes to put federal bureaucrats between each of us and our physicians?
It's hard for me to believe she will, but I'm not going to put my money on anything. But right now, I would still stick to what I thought of 6-8 months ago, is that they'll probably pass something, but it will be watered down because the country and Congress seems to adapt to gradualism. You know, they've been talking about socialized medicine and one-payer systems since the 1940s. But, you know, it's incrementally getting worse, more government all the time, and changing parties never help. Have you ever noticed when the Republicans are in, they don't necessarily shrink the size of government?
No.
So, it's going to continue. And I think it'll be difficult for them to walk away with nothing, but I also think it's going to be very hard for her to get the votes. But I wouldn't bet on it.
Won't they be digging their own political graves if they do this? Haven't they sensed the feel in the country that we simply don't want the federal government to dictate to us what we have to buy and how we have to live and what our health care should be?
Judge, you and I have gone to a lot of meetings with a lot of crowds like this and a lot of enthusiasm. How often do we see our opposition there? How often do we see Nancy Pelosi at these rallies? They're not there. They're not in touch, I don't believe. I think they're out of touch. They've been in Washington too long, and they live with the sentiment up there. Their goal is maintaining power. You would think they would wise up because they are going to lose what they crave the most because they are not understanding how upset the American people really are.
The last time you and I were together was just a couple of weeks ago in the belly of the beast in Washington, D.C. itself at the Conservative Political Action Conference. And all those conservative Republicans were there, and everybody that was there took a vote as to who they wanted to be the next president of the United States. And you won. And you know what? I forgot to vote, so you would have won by even more. Did it startle you? Does it startle you that they are saying, well, not enough people voted. There were only 2,500 of the 10,000 that voted, and Ron Paul's better organized than anybody else? Will they ever accept reality that freedom is an idea whose time has come, and you personify it?
Well, I think it's a lot more than just me. I think something big is going on in the country. I think a lot more people personify and endorse the principles of liberty than anybody ever dreamed of, more than I had ever dreamed of. Who would have ever dreamed 2 years ago that we'd get every single Republican and a bunch of Democrats wanting to audit the Federal Reserve? So,
well, that is... when the Federal Reserve is audited, it will be because of your personal determination to educate people about the Fed. I mean, who would have thought when you go into a coffee shop, the person serving you the coffee is talking to you about auditing the Fed? But that is what is happening today in large measure because of education, of the education that you've spearheaded. Will this pass the Congress? Will the President of the United States of America put his signature on a bill that will require a full, fair, and open audit of the Fed in the lifetime of anybody in this room?
If the vote occurred tomorrow, no, I don't think it would happen because there's a great resistance in the Senate. If it passed the Senate and got into a bill, most likely the president I know he would really want to veto the bill. But if he did not veto the bill, he would be assured that it would immediately go into the courts, and the courts have not been our friends with sound money and central banking. So, yes, we have a long way to go, but we've achieved a lot because we've gotten the attention of the American people, and they understand where the real source of the corruption and the evil is, and that is in the Federal Reserve System.
I have to tell you, I think once it is audited, it will be over for the Fed.
That's all it would take.
Once the world realizes what they've been doing, for all we know, they bailed out Greece with money that they printed in our name.
But you know, Bernanke objects because he doesn't want us to find out what those bizarre things are that they are doing.
Do you think that members of Congress are embarrassed about the way they behave in public? That the government would actually say to a senator from Louisiana, we'll give you $300 million to pave the highways if you vote for this. A senator from Nebraska, we'll relieve you of the same obligations that all the other 49 states will have. That they'll say to a senator from Florida, name your price. That they'll say to a congressman from Pennsylvania, don't run against Arlen Specter. We'll give you a high-ranking job because we need him returned to the government. And even today, I never heard of this Congressman Massa, but he claims that they're trumping up charges against him because he's a Democrat who voted against health care, and they caused him to resign. Have these people no shame? Don't they understand the laws against bribery and against intimidation and against extortion? Because that's what they're doing.
I really don't think they feel any shame. They rationalize, they talk to themselves, they tell them that they're working in the people's best interests, and they talk to themselves, but conditions are changing, and hopefully Washington will change as well.
You and I share a hero in American history that I suppose everyone in the room is grateful for his life and his works. He wrote the Declaration of Independence. He had a great public adversary who was the father of big government, Alexander Hamilton. But they agreed on one thing. And that was this: when the public realizes that the public treasury is a public trough, they will send people to Washington who will only bring back as much as they can. Have we reached that point where people go to Washington to grab as much of the pie as they can.
Yes, it still exists, and that's the way it's worked for a long time. But that's changing because now the only thing left for Washington to admit is that the government and our country is bankrupt, and it won't last any longer. Back when Jefferson and Hamilton argued it, they argued strenuously against a central bank creating money out of thin air. But now we have the central bank creating money out of thin air, compounds the problem, and it's coming to an end. And that is why I think that we should all have a token of optimism, because we're in a stage where they can't rationalize much longer. And that's the argument up there, is they're absolutely refusing to admit that this government is absolutely bankrupt, and that's why they're arguing about the problems.
Congressman Paul, if we promise to stop Freedom Watch at exactly 8 o'clock, will you return to this podium to speak to these wonderful young people?
Yes, I will be. I will be back. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us.